Good morning and welcome to our today's lesson, where we'll be looking at conversion of units of measurement, to be specific the area measurements. And in our previous lesson we had looked at how to convert units of measuring length. We want to look at how we are going to convert the units of measuring area, whereby just like the way we were converting the units of measuring length from the smallest to the largest and vice versa, the same will apply when it comes to handling the units of measuring area. Some of the units that are used when measuring area are like kilometer squared, We also have meter squared. We can also have centimeter squared, and we can end up having the smaller one. These are millimeter squared. These are some of the units that are commonly used when measuring area. We also have some special units. Special units because they are not used commonly, and some of them are like hectare, whereby we can have 1 hectare being equal to 10,000 square meters, and we also have square. Where 1 square is equal to 100 square feet. 100 square feet. So these are some of the units that are applied when we are measuring area. I now want us to move on to create a chart that will be helping us to convert from one unit to another. Just for example, we can convert from kilometer squared to meter squared, or even from meter squared to centimeter squared, or we can convert from centimeter squared to millimeter squared, or the reverse is also true. We can start from millimeter squared to centimeters to meters, and lastly to kilometer squared. In this chart, we are going to have kilometer squared here. We can have meter squared, square centimeters, and lastly we can have square millimeters. We want to know how do we move from square kilometers to square meters, and even from square meters to square centimeters, up to square millimeters. And to do that, we will start by looking at how the units themselves relate to each other when it comes to length. We know that 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. So if we have 1 kilometer squared, square kilometer, This means we are going to have 1,000 meters multiplied by, this basically means 1 kilometer multiplied by a kilometer. Let us start from there. It means 1 kilometer multiplied by another kilometer to get 1 square kilometer. And this we can substitute in, we can convert this to meters. A kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters multiplied by 1,000 meters, giving us 1 million square meters, 1 million square meters. And this can be expressed as 1,000 squared. This can even be expressed as 1,000 squared, 1,000 times 1,000. So in our chart here, when we want to move from a kilometer to meter, it means we are going to multiply by 1,000 squared. A kilometer squared is the same as 1 kilometer times 1 kilometer, which means we have 1,000 meters times 1,000 meters. That is why I'm writing here 1,000 squared. And also, we can apply the same when we want to convert from square meters to centimeters. We will start by looking at how the units relate, that 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. Therefore, 1 meter squared is the same as 1 meter multiplied by 1 meter, which can be expressed as 100 centimeters multiplied by 100 centimeters. This will give us 100 squared centimeter squared. So that when we move from a meter squared to centimeter squared, this is the same as we multiply by 100 squared, or 10,000. This is the same as 1 million, and this is the same as 100 squared, or 10,000. And the same concept can be applied when we want to move from centimeter squared to millimeter squared. We will have 1 centimeter being equal to 10 millimeters. This one we have already learned in our previous lesson. So 1 square centimeter will be the same as 1 centimeter multiplied by 1 centimeter. And this can be written as 10 millimeters multiplied by 10 millimeters, giving us 100 millimeters squared, and this can be expressed as 10 squared, so that when we move from centimeter to square centimeters to millimeter squared, this will be multiplied by 10 squared. So you will realize that as you move from the larger units to smaller units, you will perform multiplication. To convert from larger units to smaller units, you will perform multiplication. And when we move from smaller units to larger units, we will perform division. So when you have units of area expressed in square millimeters and you want to convert to square centimeters, you will divide by 10 squared, which is the same as 100. And to move from centimeters squared to meter squared, we will divide by 100 squared. And for us to move from square meters to square kilometers, we will divide by 1,000 squared, which is the same as 1 million. This chart is very vital when it comes to conversion of these commonly used units of measuring area. Having looked at how we can move using this chart, I want us now to move on to examples so that we can try to apply the same chart and see whether it will be of any help to us. And my first example is on converting examples. My first example is we need to convert this area measurements to the units shown in the brackets. I will label it number 1. Converting area measurements to the units shown in brackets. And the first that we need to convert, 930 square centimeters should be converted to square meters. This should be converted to square meters. When you look at this example, you will realize that we are actually moving from a smaller unit to a bigger unit. And from our flowchart that we've just had, when we move from smaller units to larger units, we perform division. And even before we do that, what we ought to know is that if we have an area like this to be 1 square meter, it means we have the length is 1 meter and the breadth is also 1 meter. The length being 1 meter, we can replace it with centimeters. How many centimeters make up 1 meter? That is 100 centimeters. The same should be done here. This is 100 centimeters. So this will give us 100 times 100 square centimeters. 1 meter squared is equal to 100 times 100, which will give us 10,000 square centimeters. So with this, we will have 930 square centimeters being equal to 930 divided by 100 squared, and this can be written as 930 divided by 10,000, and this will give us 0.093 square meters. So we have converted from square centimeters to square meters. This operation involves division by 10,000 to arrive at an answer which is 0.093 square meters. The second example we are going to look at this morning is 0.4 square centimeters, and this should be converted to square millimeters. This should be converted to square millimeters. So what we ought to realize is that even in this example, we are moving, in this example now, we are moving from a larger unit to smaller unit. And from the chart that we have just created, when that happens, it entails multiplication. It is all about multiplication when you are moving from square centimeters to square millimeters. So we start by looking at if we can have an area like this one here, and we say that this is this area is 1 square centimeters. This means the length is 1 centimeter, the width is also 1 centimeter, and that length can be expressed in millimeters, which is 10 millimeters, and the width will also be 10 millimeters. So that when you multiply this, 1 square centimeters will be the same as 10 multiplied by 10. This will give us 100 square millimeters. So if we have 0.4, therefore our 0.4 square centimeters, this will be 0.4 multiplied by 100 square millimeters, giving us, this will give us 40 square millimeters as our answer. This is the second example. In our first example, we moved from a smaller unit to a larger unit. We converted from a smaller unit to a larger unit. And in this second example, we have just converted from a larger unit, which is a square centimeters, to a smaller unit, which is a square millimeters. You can also realize that when you are converting from a larger unit, a smaller unit to a larger unit, you tend to get a smaller number. You tend to get a smaller number. And when you are converting from a larger unit to a smaller unit, you tend to get many of those smaller units. Let us look at our third example. Still on conversion. We want to convert 0.005 square kilometers to square millimeters. Referring on our chart that we have just created, you discover that to move from square kilometers to square millimeters, we will first of all move through two other units, from square kilometers to square meters, then from square meters to square centimeters, and lastly, we can move from square centimeters to square millimeters. All those operations should be performed. So to be on the safe side, we can convert this through all those units before we arrive at our desired unit. So 0.005 0.005 square kilometers. To convert this to square meters, it will involve multiplication by 1,000,000 or 1,000 squared. This will be 0.005 multiplied by 1,000 squared, and this will give us 0.005 multiplied by 1,000,000. Ultimately, we are going to get this multiplication by 1,000,000 is like moving the decimal point 3 places to the right, 6 places to the right. That will be 6 places to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this will give us 5,000 square meters. We have converted 0.005 square kilometers to meter squared. We now move from this to square centimeters. We are still moving from a larger unit to a smaller unit, so it involves multiplication. This will be 5,000 multiplied by 100 squared, which will be 5,000 multiplied by 10,000, giving us 50 million square centimeters. And now we can comfortably move from 50 million square centimeters to millimeters. Still, it involves multiplication. It involves multiplication. The number is a bit long. To change from square centimeters to millimeters, it is through multiplication by 10 squared, which is the same as 100. 10 squared is the same as 100, which is 10 times 10. This finally will give us This will give us 5 billion. This will give us 5 billion square millimeters. And remember, in our previous lessons, when we were looking at conversions, we said that sometimes such a like long numbers or big numbers, it is good to write them in standard form. It is good to write them in standard form, and such a number can be written as 5.0. It can be written as 5.0 times 10 raised to power 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 raised to power 9 square millimeters. This number is a bit shorter, and it is a universal number. The standard form of expressing numbers is universal, so this one is also allowed. Let us look at a second example, and in this second example, we are still looking at conversion of units, so that we can get to understand this concept better. We convert these units 3,000 square centimeters to square millimeters. So you will still realize that we are moving from a larger unit to a smaller unit, so we need to multiply. This will be 3,000 multiplied by, check from the chart that we created. We are moving from centimeters to millimeters, so this is the same as 3,000 multiplied by 10 squared, which will be 3,000 times 100, giving us 300,000 square millimeters. We can also have another example. We can convert 0.5 square meters to square centimeters. In this example, again, we are supposed to move or convert from a larger unit to a smaller unit, so it is all about multiplication. Looking at the chart, when we move from square meters to square centimeters, we multiply by 100 squared. And still, for us to understand this concept, we can have this diagram here, where we have this area here, this square, having an area of 1 square meter. That means the length is 1 meter, which is the same as 100 centimeters. And the width is also 1 meter, which is the same as 100 centimeters. So when you multiply a meter by a meter, you get 1 meter squared. Gives us 1 meter squared, which is the same as 100 times 100 centimeters, giving us 10,000 square centimeters. So that is where we are getting this 100 squared. And this will be the same as 0.5 multiplied by 10,000 square centimeters, giving us 5,000 square centimeters. So conversion of units is as simple as you can see. Sometimes we might be required to add units of area. And when we want to add or even subtract the units of area, one cardinal rule is that you ensure they are in the same units of measurement. We want to move on to look at our third example, and in this example we are going to perform some addition and subtraction of units of area to see how that can be handled. We will start by looking at finding the sums. We find the sum of the following measurements given, expressing our answers in the units given in the brackets. Our first sum should be of 0.3 square meters and 251 square centimeters, and our answer should be expressed in square centimeters. For us to handle this, we are not just going to add them direct the way they are, because you realize that the first figure that we have is in square meters, while the second one is in square centimeters. And our answer is supposed to be expressed in square centimeters. So for us to handle this, we need to express all the units in the same unit that is required. When you look at this, we have 0.3 square meters. We need to convert this unit first. So the first step that we are supposed to do is for us to express all the measurements in the units given in the brackets. In the units given in the brackets. Then, having done that, we'll proceed with our addition. So when you look at 0.3, this is the same as 0.3 multiplied by 100 squared, which is 0.3 multiplied by 10,000, giving us 3,000 square centimeters. So having gotten this, we can now take this value and add it to 251 square centimeters for us to get our final answer. This will be 3,000 plus 251 which will be 3,251 square centimeters. When it comes to addition, you can perform it the way it is, or you can decide to arrange the numbers in column form so that you perform your addition. And if you have a calculator, you can still punch in these values for you to arrive at this answer. Let us look at another example. under this. Nimefikisha 30 kweli? The second example is for us to add 400 square millimeters to 11.5, a decimal number, square centimeters, and our answer should be expressed in square centimeters. Just like the way we have done in this first example, we need to make sure that all the units of measurement are in conformity with the units that we have been given in the brackets here. This decimal number is 11.5 square centimeters, while this one is 400 square millimeters. We convert the 400 square millimeters to square centimeters before we perform our addition. So 400 square millimeters, we are changing from a smaller unit which is a square millimeter, to a larger unit. It calls for division. This will be the same as 400 divided by how many millimeters make up a centimeter. This will be 10, and since it is squared, well, we are squaring, we are talking about units of area. This will be 400 divided by 10 squared, which will be 400 divided by 100, and this will give us 4 square centimeters. Now that we have converted the 400 square millimeters to square centimeters, we can proceed with addition. Therefore, 11.5 square centimeters plus 4 square centimeters, this will give us, we can rearrange them in column form. This is 11.5 and this is 4. It can be 4.0, so that when we add, we will have 5. 1 plus 4, this will be 5, then we'll have 1. So this will be 15.5 square centimeters. Let us look at our last example on the sum. Example C. We find the sum of 0.36 square centimeters and 0.5 square kilometers, and our answer should be expressed in square millimeters. When you look at this last example, all the units that we have are not the same as the units that our answer should be expressed. So we need to convert this to millimeter squared and also this to millimeter squared before we proceed with addition. We will start with conversion of 0.360 square centimeters to millimeters. And this is the same as 0.360 multiplied by 100, giving us 36.0. Square millimeters. We have converted the first decimal number. We now convert 0.5 square kilometers. And to convert this, we will first of all convert from square kilometers into square meters, then from square meters to centimeters squared, and lastly to millimeters. We can perform bit by bit conversion, or we can do it at once, because when we want to convert this number to square meters, this will be 0.5 multiplied by 1000 squared, and 1000 squared is the same as 1 million. This number is already converted into square meters, and to convert the same number to square centimeters, we will multiply by 100 squared. So this number, when multiplied by 1000 squared and 100 squared, it will have been converted to square centimeters. And lastly, the same number can be multiplied by 10 squared, so that we convert it into millimeter squared. This will give us 0.5 times, this is the same as 1 million, this is the same as 10,000, and lastly this is the same as 100, and this will give us 5 how many decimal, this will be moving the decimal place to the right, the number of places equal to all these zeros. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, because the 1 0 has been taken care of there. So this number is actually 500 billion. This is 500 billion square millimeters. We have converted this number to square millimeters. We now proceed with addition. Which will be 36.0 plus 500 billion which will give us, we can arrange this number in column form before we add them. Plus 36. This number is 500 billion and 36. Square millimeters, square millimeters. You can express it like this, or you can decide to write it in standard form. But when you write it in standard form, you will realize that you will somehow temper with the accuracy of the number, because you'll just write 1 point, all these zeros, and at the end there you have 36, then you multiply by 10 raised to the given number of powers. You will not have changed much. So this number, we will prefer that we leave it at that. Let us look at one very last example before I give you an assignment. Sometimes you can be given a certain figure. You are asked to calculate the area of that figure. Then you are given further instructions to express your answer in given units of measurement of area. We can have a question like this: calculate the area of the rectangle below and express your answer in square millimeters, and express your answer in square millimeters. The rectangle is here. The length of this rectangle is 60 centimeters, while the width is 300 millimeters. So when you look at this figure, you are given different units of length and you are told to calculate the area. First of all, you need to know how to calculate the area of a rectangle. You need to be well conversant with the formula. Area, when it comes to a rectangle, is calculated from the formula length multiplied by the width. Our length is 60 centimeters, and our units are supposed to be expressed in millimeters. So we are supposed to convert this 60 centimeters to millimeters. We ask ourselves a question: how many millimeters make a centimeter? That is, 1 centimeter is equal to 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeters. Therefore, 60 centimeters will be equal to 600 millimeters. So this will be the same as 600 millimeters multiplied by 300 millimeters, and this will give us an area of 180,000 millimeters squared. Having looked at all these examples, I hope you now know how to convert these units of area, and I want to give you an assignment to help you when you will be revising, to gauge yourselves whether you have understood the concept. The first question convert the following area measurements. To the units given in brackets. You should convert 2,980,000 square millimeters to square centimeters. The second is for you to convert 537 square centimeters to square millimeters, and you can also convert 0.023 square meters to square centimeters. Another question is for you to find the sum of the area units. Bado dakika ngapi? And express your answer in the units given in the brackets. You find the sum of 0.00003 square kilometers, 9 square meters, and 37 million. Square centimeters, and your answer should be expressed in square meters. Your answer should be expressed in square meters. Another one. You find the sum of 3.06 square meters, 400 square centimeters, and 25 square millimeters. This is your assignment. Just a recap that in today's lesson we have learned on how to convert the units of area. Some of the units of area we have already mentioned are kilometer squared, meter squared, centimeter squared, and millimeter squared. And we also have the special units like a hectare, which is equal to 10,000 square meters. And we also have square, where 1 square is equal to 100 square feet. And we have said that for us to convert from larger units like a kilometer to kilometer squared to meter squared, we need to perform multiplication by 1,000 squared, which is a million. And then from meter squared to centimeter squared, we perform multiplication by 100 squared, which is equal to 10,000. Then to move or to convert from centimeter squared to millimeter squared, we multiply by 10 squared, which is 100. Then for us to move from smaller units back to larger units, we perform division. That is, when we move from millimeter squared to centimeter squared, we divide by 100. And when we move from centimeter squared to meter squared, we divide by 10,000. And when we move from meter squared to kilometer squared, we divide by 1,000,000 or 1,000 squared. That conversion chart will come in handy when you are dealing with this. I now want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my next lesson, where we will be looking at conversion of units of volume. A very enjoyable lesson you can't afford to miss. Welcome and thank you.